Hello and good evening, and welcome to the Shed, hashtag Irish Blues Mafia with me, Trevor. I'm delighted to be joined tonight by Pro Football Ireland's Mark Hogan. You're very welcome along, Mark, to the show. Welcome back.
What's the story? Yeah, we have to, Trev, get the updated intro for you. Get rid of Stefan Diggs. It should have been, I should have
Yeah.
had it ready for this episode.
Well, I'm very grateful. You did a mighty job in the last one, and we'll find a way of editing them out somehow.
We'll
so,
I'll have to see do I
but
have it file on the computer still and be able to get rid of it. I bet you it's gone now. I probably only got rid of it there in the off season thinking I wouldn't need to change it again.
Uh, well, look at it. I can live with him being there for the time being anyway. He hasn't done us any harm. How are you keeping, and how's everything going for you at Pro Football Ireland this year?
No, it's been great now, Trev, the last few weeks because, we're in the midst of the off season that a lot of people in America probably hate. But over here in Ireland, sure, we've been so lucky between what happened with Charlie Smith a few weeks ago to just over the last weekend, we got to witness Rory Began and Mark Jackson go over and partake in the camps with NFL teams. It's like, I can't get over how the NFL has really come to Ireland to that level that this time of year seems to be the happiest for fans here because we feel so included and so involved with guys that we grew up alongside or over in America trying out for teams.
Oh yeah, look, it is a very exciting time of the year. Even though there's no football going on, but to see Charlie Smith go over and make it at the Saints, and the other lads get the tryouts with the Steelers and the Panthers, and the future is bright for people here that are interested in the game. There's something to aim for.
It's massive, and even for fans of any single team here, Paddy Clifford from the Kerry football team is a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He got to read out a team. Stevie the Irish Jaguar, a fan of the team, gets to read out a draft pick. Like those draft picks were crazy, but I love that it paid dividend in two out of the three cases at least. That fans of the teams were the ones that are reading it because I tell you, like I've gotten some incredible experiences through the work with Pro Football Ireland. I think if I was able to make an Arizona draft pick, it'd be right up there with anything I've gotten to do.
Oh, it must have been amazing for them, surely, because like them draft picks are so special to each of them franchises and the teams. Like they only have a certain amount, and for more than one to be done here in Ireland, and if you're a fan of the team, it has to be a great privilege for you, for them, for anybody.
Yeah, you'd have to wonder. So those teams, the Jags, the Jets, and the Steelers now are activated in the Irish market. I highly doubt that they, liaise with one another. What are your plans? What are you up to? I wonder, did they know beforehand? did say the Jags or whatever, and they made the announcement early that they're making the pick, and I thought it was really cool when they did. And then all of a sudden you hear the Steelers, and then the Jets came on board. I don't know. I think the the Jets went first or the Steelers went first.
I I, I, th- I could be wrong. I thought the Jets went first, but um, I don't know if there was a lot of picks in the difference between the two.
Yeah, yeah, which is kind of incredible. Yeah, that just it caught my eye being like there's marketing teams that they had their best laid plans, especially from the Jags, and they got, you know, probably blindsided a bit. But again, as fans, we don't care about that, especially there's really active fans for those teams here. So it's really cool. And I keep on saying this, I wish those teams the very best with Ireland. Like we were disappointed when that announcement was first made in what 2018. Was it 20? No, was it later than that? Was it 2018? The international market kind of expansion happened. And I remember I was disappointed the Steelers in particular hadn't made it. But anyway, they made amends and they've made massive strides in the market here now. So all the best of them. And we see what's coming up in the future.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Like to be fair to the three teams, whether you love them or hate them, but they have a fresh market to tap into. There's nobody else here. They get first go, and whatever way they can build their franchise here, they have no one else to worry about. It's just the three of them.
Yeah, I suppose, especially then when you saw Mark Jackson kicking with the Steelers over the weekend, you're like, oh, if one of these, because look at the Saints, that move that they made signing Charlie Smith probably got them a ton of fans. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, like And don't get me wrong, these guys are not getting tryouts because teams are trying to market themselves to grow fans, but it definitely is a lovely side effect that they get with them. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm rooting for the Steelers or sorry, the Saints over here as well, Trev.
Oh yeah, because any Irish person that makes it over there, we have to keep an eye and ear out
Yeah,
and
and I have to
support
shout
them.
out Daniel Whelan, of course, as well. Daniel Whelan might have gotten lost for some of the newer fans over the course of this, but obviously
Yeah,
the Green Bay
he's good
Packers
at the
kicker
Packers.
from Wicklow is class.
Yeah, it's great. Like there's two definites. There's two more that might get there hopefully, and we can build on that then after that and see how it goes. And look, it'll only help A, NFL here in Ireland, and B, them teams get more support here.
Yeah, no, that's it. And again, it's not what it's all about, but any little helps, especially when you follow it with such passion as the likes of you and me, Trev. That look, I just want to see one more person on the bus wear a hat that I'm able to talk to about it. Versus in the past, I did say to one or two people like, "Oh, are you a fan of the team?" Like, I couldn't even. Hey, we were down in Killarney recently, and the same thing happened. Got into a taxi, the driver was wearing a Chiefs top. I said, "Are you Chiefs fan?" I said, "No, I just like the gear." We got him back to the airport then the next day, and he was wearing a New York Giants top. So you win some, you lose some.
Oh yeah, sure. That they're everywhere. Unfortunately, you'll have soccer fans and Gaelic fans wearing the tops, and you go talking to them about it, and it's a no go. Um, so you're being an Arizona Cardinals fan. My first question for you tonight is, and it's going to be a tough one now. Kyler Murray, do you trust him and do you believe in him?
I suppose what's trust? I mean, I didn't warm up to Kyler Murray for a long stretch. Thought his personality was a bit temperamental. But I think the new regime with Monty Austin has put a different stress on what they want in people's characters. And I think that that's probably taken a bit of the tension out of the building. So when it comes to Kyler Murray, I think that he's able to breathe out a bit, that maybe he's not so, I think paranoid is probably the wrong word. But, he doesn't have to keep on looking over his shoulder at the likes of Cliff Kingsbury, who's out 2 years, that, who was going to be the fall guy. Ultimately, it was Cliff. But, you didn't know was the last regime going to at one point trade Kyler Murray. And then going into this year, it looked like would the Cardinals end up with the first overall pick and be left with a decision that they go with Caleb Williams. Well, Kyler proved himself last year as a capable quarterback. Again, obviously he has had moments of and week-long stretches of excellent performance, especially is it 2 years ago now? Jesus, it's even 3 years ago now. When he was in 2 years ago now, that he would have been in the MVP race in October of 2022, and it obviously went down a cliff when the Cardinals just torpedoed. But so do I trust? I definitely think that he's probably matured a bit, and that was required. And he was able to get stuff done last year with next to no help at wide receiver. He was operating with a wide receiver one that would be a wide receiver three on other teams. So I think now that the offense as a whole has been elevated and there's been depth added to it, it'll give us a great sign, or it'll point greatly towards his future. And he has help now, and the offense seems to be clicking a lot more. So yeah, we'll certainly learn a lot more. And I guess I'm more comfortable with Kyler Murray now than maybe I was 12 months ago.
Yeah, that's good. I hope for his sake that he does grow up. He has great ability. Um, just some of the stories you heard from, as it was from the previous term, but about more interested in playing games than learning the
Yeah.
playbook and stuff like that.
There was a Thursday
He's
night
in,
meltdown against the Saints where he was shouting with Cliff Kingsbury on the sideline. And the whole feel of my fandom for the Cardinals took a turn in that moment, being like, it was toxic, Trev. So I think, and that's if it's speaking as a fan, not as anything else.
yeah,
But I think as a fan now, you can get behind them a lot more again, especially with his maturity. And he does seem to be a good guy. If you follow him on Instagram, there's certain kind of like, I wouldn't call them causes, like individuals that he's aligned himself with that might be less well off than he is. And he just has a great time for people. So, and I think that speaks to his development too.
yeah. Yeah. Look at hopefully he will. Um, with the draft that has just happened, how happy are you with the 11 picks the Cardinals made?
Well, I was thrilled with Marvin Harrison Jr. Like as soon as he didn't come off the board, and as soon as the Cardinals didn't come back off the board and trade out of it, which was a worry. Maybe it was just a media concoction that they were going to trade out. I think you had to give the Cardinals something, the fans something to root for. You had to give the national media something to pay attention with. Like Larry Fitzgerald, it was as easy watching the team for years with Larry Fitzgerald because no matter the 17 or 18 different quarterbacks that threw to him over the years, you always felt like you had a chance with him, especially towards the end of a game. It was a close one. So I think, look, Marvin Harrison Jr., that was so important. But throughout the draft, look, they had so many picks, and I've said this before, the picks have to hit. Like every single team is thrilled with their draft picks, especially, or sorry, apart from maybe the one or two teams like the Browns that didn't have a whole lot to pick from. But I've said this on our own podcast and elsewhere. Monty Austinford has been christened as a fantastic drafter because of what he did last year, turning Will Anderson then to be defensive rookie of the year. The Cardinals got to had him, but he traded back to get Paris Johnson and what turned into an additional pick for Darius Robinson this year. Those two players have to outdo Will Anderson for that pick to make sense, you know, Trev. So that's where I'm
Yeah,
kind of like, you know, you can't just look like a wheeler dealer because you have a great social media clip. He has to hit on these players, and they did have a ton of picks. You're hoping that there's 4 or 5 starters in there, but it's like, well, why shouldn't there be? Because you had such an arsenal of draft capital. So it's not knocking. I suppose it's just being a realist that everyone's not going to pan out. So I am definitely excited about it, but let's see who the ones that rise to the top are.
yeah. Like I'm listening to podcasts and stuff about the draft and what's happened. A lot of guys were saying it's not about who you pick now. You won't know how they are until about 2 or 3 years time. But you just hope that what you have picked so much of it hits and lands and does well. But like Marvin Harrison Jr., I would have been shocked if the Cardinals, like everyone kind of was guessing that 1 and 2 was going to be Daniels and Caleb Williams. And then 3 was Drake May, more than likely, but whether it would have been the Patriots, which he did go to, or would the Vikings have traded up for him, was the question. So number 4 was the Cardinals, and everyone that I was reading or listening to was full sure that Marvin Harrison Jr. was going there. But if they had traded down, it would have shocked me so much to let that caliber go because I listened to a guy called Joe Marino. He does the Locked On Bills, but he's also works for the scouting agency for the draft. And he said, without shadow of a doubt, Marvin Harrison Jr. on paper was the best player in the draft, even ahead of Caleb Williams. Just that he wasn't a quarterback, and the Bears needed a quarterback. So I was delighted he went to the Cardinals, but I would have been shocked if they trade down.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, look, like because of his father, he comes with such a pedigree that you don't really need to doubt him. But I suppose you always have to doubt him because the same kind of stuff was said about Isaiah Simmons that he's the best pure athlete in the draft, and the Cardinals got him at 9, and now he went to the New York Jets or Giants for a 7th round pick last year. Like they have to deliver before they're superstars, but we treat them as superstars as soon as they become a top 10 pick. I mean, look, I'm not going to say, okay, he was the best in the draft, so let's compare it to former number 1 overall picks. That's not really how it works because we understand position of value to be different, that quarterbacks often don't work out. And then like Trayvon Walker wasn't favored to go to the Jags when he did there 3 years ago. And he hasn't been, a world beater. But Marvin Harrison Jr. does come with a pedigree that you can't deny. And, hopefully it means they'll pan out. But you have to wait and see. And then do injuries come into it at some point? Like you can't, we don't know their future. That's why it's sport. So I'm thrilled to have him in the building. Like again, Malik Neighbors and Roma Dunze, like people are talking them up big time. I'm sure one of them will be a superstar, and then the other one will probably not pan out. We've seen it time and time again. You'd be stupid having watched the drafts any more than a couple of times. You should know by now that 50% of these players will be starters. The other 50% won't be with their team after 3 or 4 years. And then of the 50% that become starters, if we're talking about superstars, like 1 or 2 or 3 every year become those superstars. Like, look, Micah Parsons, he was a middle of the first round pick. And it's like, if you're to redo that draft, and that's why it's so silly that the same guys that, and it's silly to me, and I'm not saying any names in particular because there is no names in particular, but when you have draft analysts putting out their mock drafts alongside their redrafts of the previous year, it makes no sense to me. It's because it's like, yeah, the benefit of hindsight is massive. So it's like, there's no point, to me at least, getting too high or too low in these players. Like, let them play ball first and we see what happens.
Oh yeah, I'm of the same thought. I think with ourselves with the 28th pick, we traded with the Chiefs. People were complaining about that. I have no issue with that. Then we traded with the Panthers, and if Keon Coleman was Brandon Bean's first choice, and from what I'm going off, he was Josh Allen's first choice, then it didn't matter where he was picked as long as they got him, and they got him, and they also improved their draft picks from making them trades. Um, Xavier Worthy could be an absolute rocket machine. He's the fastest guy ever to run a 40 apparently at the combine. Um, but he's small, so he might not suit what the Bills were wanting. So, like, and until we see what these guys are like, we won't know.
And that's exactly it. Like, we can definitely enjoy the hype that's going on right now, but look, it's the enjoyment of being a fan. If you watch college, like, they don't always translate, but one thing's for sure, Trev, we're going to forget these narratives, and whoever said certain things, they're probably going to double back and say that they said the complete opposite. So I've never made a bones of it. I don't have time to watch college. I'd love to, but I don't watch college. Shout out to the boys, Derek Harger and Conal Diggin, that do some stuff for Pro Football Ireland, and they dedicate themselves to watching college throughout the year. Like, it's amazing. Those guys can talk all day. I think as they could talk with American analysts as well about the college game, because a lot of the NFL guys, they're watching NFL all year long, spend a month watching college, and all of a sudden they're experts. It takes more than that. You know yourself, Trev. It's like someone
Yeah,
coming up to you and thinking they're a Bills fan and know as much as you after a month. It doesn't happen like that. You have to dedicate so many hours consistently over years to know what you're talking about.
100%. Of course you do. And the lads you're on about there, I've listened to their podcasts on the college football side, and they 100% know. Like, even talking to you during the draft when it was happening, the way they could talk about players just like that, and there was no, I have to look something up or whatever. They could rhyme it off. They knew who was worked it and what player was strong in what position. And that takes work. And fair play to them. They do
It
a
takes
brilliant
massive
job at it.
brains as well, doesn't it? Like,
It
they
does.
know they're excellent. Like, sorry for the plug on your podcast, but yeah, shout out to the
Oh
boys.
no,
It's
no.
so good.
They are 100%, and I love listening to them because you're listening to guys that know what they're talking about. They're not bluffing it or putting out a bit of smoke here or there. They actually know what they're talking about. Um, was the outstanding story of the draft the Michael Penix Jr. pick, or was there any other story for you that stood out?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, not to harp on it about it, but yeah, like, again, I've said it on our own podcast. Like, it's just the thought process doesn't make sense. It's not that Michael Penix can be
No.
a bad player, but it's just, you've given Kirk Cousins the millions based on, you think that he's healthy enough, so you shouldn't be investing that much in, you know, it is a win now move at the end of the day. So it's like, well, continue. Like, you can't be half and half with win now. You can't say, all right, we're rebuilding now that we did one move. They just had to push all in. They didn't do that, and they'll never get the benefit of the rookie contract, because by the time he's playing, other players are going to have to get paid anyway. So I just don't think it was the smartest move for a team that has been such a darling of the last few off seasons, that it just seemed like they hit all the other positions, wide receiver, running back, and tight end, in the last few drafts. So they said, well, we keep on making these really flashy picks. Fans seem to love it for us for it. Let's go for it for another one. Let's throw them quarterback. And when you had Roma Dunze sit on the board, and look at the hype now around the Bears because they landed Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze, that's absolutely insane. So it's, again, like, look, it's a backup quarterback. You know, they say your second most important position is a backup quarterback. But when we just talked about how it's so 50-50 whether you get a superstar or a player that doesn't even amount to anything, like, it's so hard to get those quarterbacks. And unless you're getting the first guy off the board. After that, it becomes insane. Like, there is that whole draft the last time. Trey Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance. Zach Wilson and Trey Lance don't get a look in. Obviously Trey Lance is now on a
Yeah.
different team and altogether. And Trevor Lawrence was billed in the exact same way that Caleb Williams was, the absolute future of the NFL, generational talent. So if you're talking about that, Penix was never involved in that conversation of being a game changer at the level that you need a quarterback. I mean, that is a reach then for the Falcons. But again, he could work out, and look, again, they studied him. I didn't. But when you have other places to go, and at that point as well, it just seems like anything's on the table. If you're picking a quarterback at that position, anything's on the table. So it's not like your defense was fantastic last year, and it's like you could have done with another weapon if at that point with wide receiver. So it was definitely a surprise, and I think everyone has gotten over the surprise and just realizes now that it was a crazy move. So it'll be interesting to track during the year, but there'll be nothing to track because hopefully Kirk Cousins will be on the field and they'll be doing well.
Yeah, like the thing that gets it for me is, and I tried to wrap my head around. I can understand their take where they wanted to have a quality backup quarterback, but if you're Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins stays fit, and I hope he does because I like Kirk Cousins, and he plays well for the Falcons for 2, 3 years, like the guaranteed money that's there for them 3 years at least. Um, that's 3 years of your life sitting there where JJ McCarthy will be playing, where Bo Nix could probably be playing for Denver Broncos, where Caleb Williams will be at the Bears, and so on. Like all these guys will have had 3 years experience or 2 years experience, and he'll just be the backup quarterback to Kirk Cousins, and he will be learning, but that's his mid to late 20s nearly gone by the time he gets on a football field. And I just
Just a year younger than Kyler Murray, who is 5 years in the NFL, 5 seasons in the NFL now at this point. I suppose, look at the Falcons, if they have a quarterback that they can turn to in a year's time, they say, to hell with Kirk Cousins, we don't care what money it costs. This guy, Michael Penix, is the next Patrick Mahomes. They won't care. Like, look, Alex Smith had to go so that Patrick Mahomes could step in. Jordan Love now has worked out beautifully for the Green Bay Packers. If Kirk Cousins can, brush off on Michael Penix, again, talk about narratives that have us eating our own words, but they're words that we're all going to deny ever happened.
well, hopefully. So just this week alone, or yesterday, it happened that Jared Goff got offered a new contract, or signed a new contract with the Detroit Lions for 4 years for $53 million a year. He puts them at the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL at the minute. Has Jared Goff proved all his doubters wrong? And uh, should the Rams have kept the faith in them, or was it the right move to swap with Matthew? I know Matthew Stafford did win a Super Bowl, but could Jared Goff have done that if he had stayed at the Rams?
I don't think he could have done it if he'd stayed with the Rams, because, yeah, it's a funny one because obviously they had McVay there, but McVay he didn't give up on him. I just think it was time to move on. It's so funny though. Like, Jared Goff is only a year older than Patrick Mahomes. Like, you think of Jared Goff has been there for so long, and Patrick Mahomes, even though he's on that big contract now, like, it feels like he's still part of that young guard because there's your shelf life as a quarterback. It's so long that you can definitely play until you're 39, say, which gives Jared Goff another 10 years in the league. Patrick Mahomes is 28. So it's kind of funny because, speaking about, rewriting narratives, like, yeah, Jared Goff didn't pan out with the LA Rams. We all thought it was a salary dump, but it's worked out. Like, it goes to show, doesn't it, the importance of an offensive coordinator? Like, has he proved he's proved himself as far as the Detroit Lions in that system? He's perfect because statistically, top 5 across most metrics towards the end of the year last year. It's like, whatever you care about flashy play, if it's an underarm throw by Patrick Mahomes or some absolute worldie on a run by Justin Herbert. I mean, they're the highlight plays. But sure, who else had highlight plays over the last number of years? Justin Fields. But his highlight plays were like on massive scrambles that got him massive, I suppose, admiration from fans. But if you watched him snap to snap, he wasn't getting plays off. So what are highlights? Maybe you don't need them. And Jared Goff has proved that. Like, go in, keep your head down, get your work done. And he's elevated those players as well. Last year, going into the draft, it was all about your own tight end as being one of these, Dalton Kincaid being one of the best to ever come out. And it's Sam Laporta 1 year on that we're all talking about. And that happens when you have great quarterback play too. So, and look, and there's more to it than that. Obviously, they went out and got running backs last year in Detroit, and their offensive line was really good towards the end of it. Then it got banged up. Wasn't it Frank Ragnow who got a bit hurt, and that came against them. So it is, the unit as a whole for the Detroit Lions, and Jared Goff is well able to operate in that. Um, it would take someone watching tape to a bigger. I do like to watch games back, but I like to do it week to week for podcasts. It would probably take someone to analyze it a bit better and kind of put together what they were doing differently. I suppose it does seem like there's more outside play for the Detroit Lions. Cooper Cup, obviously, they didn't. Yeah, you definitely have to analyze it. It is worth analyzing. Maybe that'd be something to look at over the summer. But kind of why it didn't necessarily work out with Sean McVay, one of the best offensive minds in the NFL, for Jared Goff, and now in a probably simpler offense with Detroit, it has worked out. But yeah, I don't think anyone has failed in that trade. Sure, the Rams went off and won a Super Bowl. The Lions now have a quarterback and that draft, they were hoping Trey Lance would fall to them. So when the 49ers traded up and the Lions were picking, I think, at 7 or 9, and they didn't get their quarterback. So look at how it's worked out now. They were able to bypass all those growing pains and realizing that Trey Lance mightn't have been for them.
Yeah, like it's funny how things can happen. But I watching Jared Goff when he was at the Rams, it looked like I don't know, was especially it looked like he was lost in that Super Bowl that they lost, and then the following season he never got back to the Jared Goff he was beforehand. And but it seems he's gone to the Lions and rebuilt himself as well as the team, and I think he's worth his contract compared to you have Deshaun Watson getting 46 million for playing 12 games in 2 years. Like Jared Goff would lose and find them.
Plus, it's just quarterbacks. Like, as the salary cap goes up exponentially, so do the quarterbacks contracts go up exponentially in line with the salary cap. But it's like that's why we're seeing and questioning whether Justin Jefferson is going to get 40 million. That before COVID was top tier quarterback money. So it's outrageous, but it's all to do with the money in the NFL now, and it's being invested in those big name players. And also,
yes,
do you know, Trev, they can afford it because they're drafting so well right now that they have a lot of youth on that team. So while they don't have to pay a superstar wide receiver, they will obviously in a couple of years, but they're able to take advantage of that. So if you probably look at the structure of that contract, which actually I didn't do at this point because it wasn't out when I initially looked, but I wonder is it more front loaded because they just probably have that ability to do that because the team is so young.
I think it's 212 million altogether. 170, I think, is guaranteed, and it averages out roughly at 53 a year. But you know how they can, rejig it and as they go along when they need to. But yeah, like for such an important piece of the Detroit Lions, it's good to see that Jared Goff has found his feet and is playing brilliant stuff for them. So my next question for you is: we're going to fast forward to the start of the season, and your expectation for the Cardinals in 2024, is it higher than last year, or are you similar, or are you looking at playoffs, or?
Yeah, I'm higher than last year. I hope this season isn't over by week 12. Like even if they were to miss the playoffs, I mean, it would hurt at the moment or in that moment. But if they're involved, at least, like, I suppose going into the season, it's the first time in at least the last 2 seasons I know I wasn't excited about the Cardinals because I knew there wasn't genuine aspirations. I suppose 2 years ago it was expecting them to be poor enough that Cliff Kingsbury would be gotten rid of. And last year you felt that if they were going to be poor enough that they'd be getting Caleb Williams and potentially Kyler Murray was out. So now you're rooting for all the guys again to do well. they've come through a desperate stretch that included, building up and getting those draft picks that they're able to invest so heavily. So I suppose the other thing is that culture change that I alluded to, that Monty Ford definitely does seem to want high character guys. Max Melton, the quarterback that they're able to get in the draft, second round. He was a player that played for, say, a smaller college that didn't go off for the NIL money. They seem to have definitely prioritized that across the board, just like these hardworking guys that don't have egos about them. So as that starts to translate through, if they're a poor man's Detroit Lions, and poor man's Detroit Lions I still think is quite a high ceiling, and hopefully at some point they'll be able to catch up. Maybe it'll be 2 years. If they're on that Lions trajectory, which is a very nice trajectory to have, because we know how the 3-year plan that team implemented was nailed down to a T, that they were hitting on starters throughout the draft. They just kept on complimenting themselves. If we call this year 2 of that, I mean, that makes for a really exciting 2025, doesn't it? But yeah, I'm definitely going excited. And it's the first time, it's so refreshing. It's the first time in 3 years that I'm genuinely really pumped to watch the Cardinals again. It was a part of my life that was missing, honestly, Trev, yourself.
Oh, 100%. Look at any sport, if you're supporting a team or following a team, doesn't matter if it's NFL, soccer, Gaelic, whatever, and they're going out and they're going to probably get beat. It drains you, Whereas if you go out and you think to have a chance in every game, and then it builds from that, there's excitement and you look forward to it.
Yeah, that's it, and it's switching on. And I haven't probably had these emotions for the Cardinals since maybe the Larry Fitzgerald team, those Bruce Arians team. Just it was full of players that you genuinely wanted to root for. Whereas it felt like over the last few years, like the likes of Terrell Suggs there a few years back signed with the team, it seemed like mercenaries that had no interest in being there for anything other than a paycheck. I heard Wayne Rooney talk recently about Man United, and the players in the field don't want to be on the field because they are looking forward towards the Euros this summer. And it's like there was a sense of that with the Cardinals, that there wasn't too much that you wanted to root for. Whereas now it's just the guys that they're getting back, the likes of your Trey McBrides that were breakout stars last year, and that it's nice to have those guys in the team again. Someone whose jersey that you might want,
Oh yeah, that's great stuff. And again, even like I know in my thoughts this year, the Bills will not. I don't. You can never say they won't win the Super Bowl or they won't challenge, but I don't have them in the same grade as I would have had last year or the year before, because there is a bit of rebuilding. But you're still excited for what these new players coming in will bring, and can the old guys that are there for a few years raise it one more time and see what can happen. And it's still not a downer to me. It's still, who knows how the season will turn out, but you're looking at it as we'll get to the playoffs if we can, and then whatever happens can happen after that.
Yeah, and it was almost written in the stars. It seemed like last year. Look, as long as the Bills have Josh Allen, and I was seeing something by Ben Solak today about whether a divorce could be on the cards with Josh Allen, which was like, wait, what? At some point, but like it was last year when they were able to get Jordan Poyer back last year, but they weren't able to this year. He went off to Miami, a rival of all teams. He did look like he was going to go there last year. It did seem like they kept the band together. Stephon Diggs wasn't traded and stuff, but that balloon just popped. It was like everyone that was saying we're staying in this because we are the favorites to win the Super Bowl said, you know what? No, they just need to scrap it. And again, maybe there'll be a bit of a culture change there too, because that's what they're saying about Sean McDermott. It's like he's a good head coach, but he's not able to do anything different. He has to just keep on rolling it back again and again and again. Hope that other teams get weaker and the Bills stay at the exact same point. Whereas now they probably have regressed a little bit, but it's in the hopes that, something comes from it, something different.
Oh yeah. And like all teams, I seen it with Mayo from the 2012 to the 2021-22 team. We didn't win the All Ireland, but we got there enough times, never crossed the line. But that team, when it came to ending, there was a bit of a mess before us. We're starting now as a slow rebuild, but as a rebuild, but you're starting to rebuild again. And it's the same in any football team. It's great when it's happening. there'll be a bit of a mess near the end, and then you have to rebuild and start again.
If you look at Donegal with the GAA, for anyone that understands, it looked like they were years away again. It looked like they were just seeing how long Michael Murphy could keep playing for them, and then as soon as he was ended, it was going to be like, well, when he's gone, we're going into a complete rebuild to get Jim McGuinness, and they just win an Ulster final. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It can be done. And the one thing I do like about the Bills' choices this year was Keon Coleman, how level-headed he is and normal and natural, whereas Stefan Diggs was, I am me, I am the man, I am this. He's not, but he's reaching out. He reached out to Andre Reed to get information on how to be a Bills player, what's expected of him, and he's also, even though it was said to him at a news conference the last day in so many words, well, you're doing all the right things. He says, like, it's one thing saying it, I have to do it on the field. And he says, they'll remember me more if I do it on the field. And that's what he's aiming for. So that's a good sign from a young lad that he's only 20, 21 years of age, that's coming into your team. It might take him a year to hit the ground running, but to hear them things is rather than to hear, I am him, that really got up my nose because he was him up for up to week 5 last year, and then he just fell off a cliff and was not him anymore, and then dropped a simple pass against the Chiefs. And I am sort of, from going sidetracking a bit, I'm kind of happy he's moved to the Texans.
yeah, that's it. So I suppose it's all culture as well, isn't it, Trev? Like just building that new culture with hope that Keon Coleman's your guy.
Yeah, well, hopefully, like he sounds like I want him to be my guy. I do want him to be my guy. So hopefully on the field he can live up to that. And I don't expect him to rock the world in year one, but if he can just develop every year, you'll get him into a wide receiver worth talking about. Um, so the fixtures have been released, or some of them have been released so far this year. So in week 1, we have the opening game is the Ravens at the Chiefs. Then you have in Sao Paulo the Packers at the Eagles. Then on the Sunday night football, they have the Cowboys at the Browns. And on the Monday night football, they have the Jets at the 49ers. There are 4 games that stand out.
Yeah, do you know what though? The opening game could have been the Texans versus the Chiefs, and that was the one I was holding out hope for. But I suppose it'll probably be built better now because I'm sure it's going to be way later in the season. They're, taking a hit on thinking that the Houston Texans could be in line for the number 1 seed, which is just crazy what CJ Stroud has done that. Like, they're such an exciting team now. Obviously, D'Amico Ryans and a lot of other stuff has happened there. But for a team that during COVID, they were so toxic, they talked throughout COVID for 2 years straight was just Deshaun Watson until he was finally traded by Easterby. So it's just funny how they're like one of the hottest teams in the NFL now. I wanted to see them play against the Chiefs, a bit like the Lions last year when they opened against the Chiefs. Yeah, I think that's why the Texans Chiefs was held until the end of the year. I think they're going to think that's around a Christmas time game that this will determine the number 1 seed. So yeah, any kind of football. I suppose the games were determined back at the end of the year. Everyone knew who their opponents were. It's kind of funny what the NFL schedule has been built into. Don't get me wrong, I am absolutely into it. I use my time planning trips to Arizona, seeing, if there's a game in, say, December around Christmas when I can visit my partner's family. Will they be playing? Maybe it's a shame because normally I'm like hoping towards December, see can they align themselves with, say, the New York Giants and New York Jets, to see can they nip over to New York for a weekend to catch them. You're a bit luckier. At least there's flights to your part of the world. But yeah, I don't know, like all the games, you'd be happy to see them, but I suppose you knew they're coming anyway.
Yeah.
Tom Brady, that's the one. The Tom Brady call game. I'll be glued to that. So I will. The Browns.
That's the
Cowboys.
Cowboys at Brown. Yeah. They were saying today that Tom Brady, and I'm looking forward to hearing him myself, that because he's on Fox, it could be the Tom Brady talk about the Patriots show when the games are on. Um, I hope that's not true. I hope he just talks about the games. But it's funny what people can put out about certain things.
We're going down that since the Payne and Eli on ESPN. There definitely is an appetite for doing things a bit differently, what Bill Belichick's going to be joining up with Payne and Eli this year, and it seems he's going to be on Pat McAfee a bit more. And it's kind of, I suppose that comes itself from Tony Romo. Obviously, Tony Romo, it seems Romo was told to pump the brakes on, saying exactly what's going to happen here because it was ruining it for fans. It was really just making it too simple, funny enough. But yeah, I think there's an appetite for that, and the stations know as they go after these superstar announcers that fans are tuning in to hear insight from the big names and see what they see because everyone reckons that they're smart. Even though apparently those same fans wouldn't be able to understand it now without Tom Brady. So I don't know, read into that what you will. But I'm definitely excited to see him as an announcer and see what kind of personality. Because I don't know, did you watch his roast? I love Tom Brady, don't get me wrong. He kind of does seem a bit stiff, like he has to have it written for him. So if he has to ad lib a bit, it'll definitely be interesting to see how it goes because he's obviously a supremely confident person, but sometimes he shields it from the public unless it is, pre-recorded or somewhat rehearsed. So we'll see how it goes for him. All the best.
Oh yeah, because I watched a small bit of the roast. I have the rest of it to watch again some other time. But yeah, like it'll be interesting to see what he comes up with differently, or will he be fit the same role as the likes of Tony Romo or them guys when he's doing the games. Like, but the main thing is that he sort of it'd be interesting to see for him to do what he sees as a quarterback when certain plays happen, or what he would have done if you know what I mean. If a certain play happened and something went wrong, would he comment on how he would have done it differently? It'll be interesting to see will he say the likes of them kind of things.
Yeah, and they say he's going to probably approach it because this is how he approaches everything in his life through a competitive prism, I suppose, that he'll be like, I want to be the best at this. So he's going to give us all to it. And he does. He seems obsessive. So it makes for great television as a fan. Like I said, excited to see how it goes. And you'd hope that it'd be, I still love Tony Romo. I don't get the hate that Tony Romo gets, that everyone's like, oh, he's too childish and he's too excited. It's like, no, I love that. That's who I am as a fan.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully I can't imagine Tom Brady's going to be quite as excited sounding, but if you bring something different, I mean, I love the NFL product anyway, to be perfectly honest, Trev. I love watching the games. I suppose maybe that's us watching from Ireland. There's still something a bit different from how our own coverage is presented over here. I know some people are even much bigger fans of the BBC coverage of the GA versus RTE because RTE have been doing it the whole time the same way. So it's different enough for me anyway that I like the coverage.
Yeah, I'm the same as yourself. Just put on an NFL game, and I don't care who's commentating. I'll watch it. And whatever bits you can pick up and learn, you pick up and learn. Um, for you were in Vegas for the Super Bowl. I haven't spoke to you since. How was the trip? And uh, compared to Arizona the previous year, was there much of a difference, or was it better or worse, or more enjoyable, or different, or
Depends what better or worse means, Trev. So the experience was insane. I suppose some people probably love Vegas. Vegas wasn't really my city. I like to go for a quiet pint, not a pint that someone's breathing smoke on you because they can smoke indoors and gamble. There's no such thing as like a countertop at a bar because they put a slot machine into every seat. But no, there was aspects of Vegas that I really enjoyed because it's a glitz and glamour city. You had celebrities wanting to fly in for the game. That was different from Phoenix because Phoenix, you had definitely celebrities on Media Row, but like when The Rock walked on to Pat McAfee's set, that was different. The likes of Joe Montana and stuff are just there next to you. You can tip them on the shoulder. You're queuing up for wings behind the likes of them. So that was definitely different. Don't get me wrong, Phoenix had big players, but there was absolute superstars left, right, and center in Vegas. I suppose there was some funny things, like can't think of all of them now, but like, yeah, there's just there's some of the aspects, like Vegas is definitely built like for those big events. Getting a hotel was a walk in the park. The year before that in Phoenix was not. I definitely think that the Super Bowl will go back to Las Vegas. before 2030, before the decade is out. Like I do see them going back, and it'll probably rob it from somewhere like Arizona. But yeah, it was weird because some of the days it was raining and stuff. Whereas, sorry, I know to make it really Irish and talk about the weather there, or whatever. But you go halfway across the world expecting to be living in a desert for a week, and it wasn't quite like that. But yeah, even like being able to go out to U2 and stuff that was over there, you can always expect Vegas to have a lot going on. So the Super Bowl definitely took it over, but maybe Phoenix obsessed over the Super Bowl a bit more. And next year we'll be off to New Orleans. And I mean, I think they're going to do a stellar job.
Oh yeah, and atmosphere in the stadiums for the two Super Bowls. Which one took it for you? Would it be Arizona or would it be Vegas?
Oh, that's a really interesting question because at the end of the day, you've obviously heard the stories that there's a lot of rich people at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I went between in Phoenix, I went between the press room and the stadium after halftime. Say I was walking back to the stadium at halftime. And there was a lot of people walking out after they'd seen the halftime show. That was insane to me. Like
Wow.
insane to me. So this year it's a dome. So they had the roof open in Arizona, even though they can close it. This was a dome. I don't think they can open that roof anyway. It doesn't look like they can open it because it's weird because there's a flyover that was happening, but we couldn't see out to see it, which was
Yeah.
really unusual. It was like, well, why bother, I guess, for the TV or whatever. But there was a Bills man in front of me, Trev, and he was there with his daughter. He said it was his second Super Bowl. He was, I don't know, maybe 65 to 70 years of age, probably had a lot of money. And he walked out during overtime. And he was a Bills fan, it seemed. And he walked out during halftime. And that to me was an eye opener because, like, this is insane. This is a Super Bowl after going to overtime. How'd you walk out? So there was a lot of excitement because I've been blessed. I've gone to two really tight games, really, really tight games. So I've been absolutely blessed. So there was a cracking atmosphere at both of them, but there definitely is an element that you can notice when you're there that there's some rich people there that just want to be there. There's a family in front of us that were wild for Usher. They were like, the girls were 14 or 15 probably. Then there's the contingent that we spoke to that were like Irish fans that mightn't and you see these in the stadium that mightn't necessarily be massive American football fans, but it was a bucket list item that they wanted to do. So as a result, maybe they followed or kept a closer eye on the season. And then you do have your hardcore fans, but they're definitely the hardcore fans are a smaller pocket than you'd say getting an All Ireland final where it's all the hardcore fans because it's such a bucket list that some people just go anyway, whether their team is in it or not.
Yeah. I know, like from going to the All Irelands over the years, when you go from say the college championship into the qualifiers, quarterfinals, semi-finals, even though the crowd isn't as Crow Park wouldn't be as full unless you're playing Dublin, we'd say. You have a better atmosphere at them games than you do at the All Ireland final because there is so many hardcore fans, but a lot of them don't get tickets for the final. Where you see people that even if they're from Mayo or from Kildare or Dublin, because they're not at games, because it might be the only game they're at in over the year or whatever 5 years or 10 years, come from America or England or wherever they come from, it's not there. It's not the same atmosphere. Like I even seen when we played Dublin in 16 and 17, and there were brilliant days. With the semi-finals before we played Kerry in 17, the drawn game and the replay game, the atmosphere in Croke Park would lose and find the All Ireland final day because you had the real fans that wanted to be there them days, and you had some real fans on All Ireland final day, but you didn't have the ones that would roar, shout, and leave everything no more than the players there. And I presume that the Super Bowl and the FA Cup and Champions League and stuff like that will be similar in certain ways.
Yeah, no, 100%. Sure, we probably could have had it here ourselves at the Europa League final. Um, there'd be people that just want to go to that because it's the Europa League final. Probably, it's like I went to Ireland versus Portugal in the Aviva 2 years ago because I wanted to, like everyone else, see Ronaldo, and it's probably one of the rare sellouts that you could not get a ticket to the Irish football. But like, try and get someone to go to the Belgium game this year when they announced that they weren't playing any of their massive players.
Oh yeah. So that well, look, you're always going to have things like that. And it's good in ways that people want to see these players and want to see these spectacles and finals and stuff. But when you have people that are hardcore, die-hard fans that go to league games or in the NFL terms, all the regular season games or whatever, and then comes to the playoffs, like some of them are kind of priced out of
Oh,
going to the Super
absolutely,
Bowl.
absolutely. And
You
look,
know,
that's of course going to happen in America of all places.
yeah,
But if you are able to, you know, find the money or give up your life savings, I mean, I'm
yeah.
so blessed I've been to 2 Super Bowls. Trev. It's like I was gonna have
Oh,
to find a way at some point, whether it's priced out or not. I was gonna get the money. So some people
oh,
just have to do it, and it's like we've met them too. Sure, look at Jerry Mullins. You probably know yourself off Twitter. He was over at the Super Bowl last year. I would not offend him by asking the money that he paid, but he raved about the experience. So you have it forever, and the
yeah,
money that you piss away in your lifetime. I'm sure it's great that you're able to have that memory. And what a weekend we had with those boys out there. That was probably one of the highlights of the weekend. Was Jer, his buddy Gary, who was over there, myself, Michael, just a few people having a pint in the bar, and you're thinking, like, lads, how did we all get here? It's such a pinch yourself moment that you're like, yeah, hard work pays off, but it's like we're a group of friends that essentially all met through the internet over our love of the NFL. So it's like those stories are really cool as well.
and they're priceless, and it's brilliant to have the memories because the sometimes the world is not a nice place, but to have stuff like that you're passionate about and meet people that you're passionate about with it, and have memories from it. It's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, power sport trip.
Yeah. My last question for you is for Pro Football Ireland. What is uh, the agenda in your pre-season and regular season for 2024? Is there anything exciting coming up? Or I know you have tours coming on, and
Yeah, if I get this wrong, I suppose Michael McQuaid will be annoyed me. No, fair play. Michael puts a lot together. Michael does so much work behind the scenes. I suppose, look, we all do, but Michael, these tours and stuff, like the guests that he's after getting, we have Phoebe Schechter in Dublin, we have Sam Monson up in Newry, we have a couple of Kerry footballers, including Paddy Clifford down in Kerry, and then we have Neil Reynolds. Am I getting this wrong? No, Jason Bell, sorry, up in Derry. Like, I look, I'm a part of Pro Football Ireland, but Michael is able to get that across the line. I think it's special. Like, I'm not going to the Derry date, but someone was asking me, would I? And it's like, isn't that amazing that someone is traveling from one part of the country up to Derry for an NFL event that would be the envy of anywhere in Europe? Like, again, I'm giving all the credit to Michael here because he deserves it. Like, thanks to Pro Football Ireland, we're able to give those experiences to fans. We had Neil Reynolds in Cork and Belfast in the last month or so as well. That I know as a fan, I'm so proud to be in any way, shape, or form part of it because we had no outlet for so long, and we're getting there now. Hopefully, the Steelers will be back again for a watch party like they did last year. So that's what's coming up. I mean, the podcasts, not that they still have to be decided. We obviously have some guests. We kicked off this year with Brett Favre, which was absolutely insane to be speaking to Brett Favre about his Irish priest over his part of the world. So it's like, yeah, we just keep it going back to London and Germany games throughout the year, culminating in a Super Bowl in New Orleans. But I suppose I've come to a section of my life, Trev, where I don't want to wish the whole thing away, but there's a lot of exciting stuff that I can't wait to come around, like going back down to Killarney for an NFL podcast. I mean, tell me that 5 years ago, Mark, you're going to be going down to the and like, I don't mean that in a stupid way. Like, Killarney isn't the edge of the earth or anything, but like, we're very proud not to be putting everything just around Dublin. I know there's nothing over in Mayo yet, Trev, or our Galway show fell through for different reasons that people were probably aware of. But yeah, we definitely are taking pride in bringing it to as far as across Ireland because there's such passionate fans, and to get those 200 people into a room together whatever it is, 100 people, it's definitely a special atmosphere. And I genuinely, I've said this to people at the shows, I think this will be the golden era of being a fan in Ireland when a game ultimately gets announced at some point, who knows when, but hopefully it's sooner rather than later. I think there'll be an influx, those plastic fans. But right now it's just, like I said, the people that we've met along the way, I just think it's such a special community that we're a part of right now. So it's when we're talking about the positives of sport and everything, it's amazing, and it's great to be, and makes me so proud to be a part of it. And again, way to go, Michael, for all the hard work that goes into that.
Oh yeah, look, Michael McQuaid is a gentleman, and you are a gentleman too, and I'm happy to be able to say I would support you 110% anywhere because you've always made time for me, both you and I. Even here coming on the show, like it really means the world to me, and it's great that something that we have a passion for, we can interact with each other and talk about things, and we'll all have difference of opinions, and that's the fun of it. Is that not everyone or all people will have the same idea or the same thoughts, and that's the joys or support the same teams about it.
Yeah, it's funny because everyone keeps on saying to me that Twitter is so toxic nowadays. I'm like, I'm still having a great experience on Twitter. I don't get anything other than sport, particularly. It's just all NFL comes through my feed, and I'm like, no, there's great people on here. I've made loads of friends on Twitter, which is the maddest thing.
Yeah, that's all I use it for. Is just the NFL and leave it at that. It's stay away from all that other stuff, and then you won't have to.
Yeah, for 100%.
There'll be no fallouts. Look at Mark. I want to thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure again. Just for the people that are watching, could you give us your social media handles and where people could follow you or contact you if they wanted to?
Yeah, Hogan NFL on Twitter, Hogan.NFL on Instagram, and obviously Pro Football Ireland, NFL Ireland. And yeah, I really think it's the place to follow along because we've been great with news over the last few months. It's been really exciting. Like we started the show with, it's been such an exciting time for Ireland that there's genuine news coming out of the country that resonates with even greater fans than ourselves, like a greater audience than just ourselves, that it's going far and wide. So I think it's really cool. So yeah, follow along Pro Football Ireland, of course.
100%. So, Mark, thank you very much for joining me tonight. And I very much appreciate it. And thank you for watching. I'll hopefully have another show again on Thursday night if there's any news in the NFL, but we'll have the fixture schedule out by then. And we'll see who's playing who and what games are coming to Europe. And there is a game in Madrid this year. They have to announce it, or they
next year, 2025.
Or 2025, so we won't have that one. So it'll be Germany and England this year. But anyway, that will keep us ticking over. So anyway, folks, look, thank you very much for joining. And until Thursday night, stay safe, stay happy. And I know there's a Cardinals band there, but I have to say it. Go Bills.